thank you very much, Malcolm. Thank you very much, Pierre, for the invitation. Now, I have a reputation here in Brussels to be rather straightforward, but with 2 minutes for a speech, I will be super straightforward. So please, all my apologies for being going directly to the main points. And I must admit that, Malcolm, in your first introduction, you have a little bit destabilized me because you were announcing that I have always new and interesting things to say. But when I prepared my intervention today, I said to myself, I will tell them that I'm speaking so often on digital single market, and I have the impression since years that I'm always telling the same story. There is no digital single market for consumers. That's the point, and I really have to tell you that's really what I'm going to stick to tonight, because what we see is that the problem has been identified from the consumer perspective. It's not about parcel delivery only. It's about territorial discrimination. It's about copyright levies, about consumer rights. It's bank accounts and access to cross-border banking, and also. So we are still not there yet. So the point is, the problem has been identified, the solutions have been identified, but there has been very, very minor progress, what we believe, due to political will. And this in spite of the fact that the European Parliament has really been trying to pushing the Commission into the right direction. So that I really have to say, this is really a very, let's say, digitally consumer-friendly Parliament, this mandate. Now, just to be very super straightforward, we believe that in some instances, when it comes to the digital single market, the Commission has really chosen the wrong priorities. How much energy has been wasted on common European sales law, while both, or even third, the consumer organizations, the business organizations, even retail organizations, if I'm right, Christian, have said that that was not really the real problem when it comes to cross-border banking. Copyright levies have been identified as one of the major barriers for cross-border consumer trade in certain sectors, and still this issue has not been taken up in a modern and future-proof way. Copyright reform, the same thing. For the moment, it's still very, very difficult for consumers to know what's legal and what's illegal, and it's really depending on the member state they're living in. And so this is quite the wrong approach by the Commission. Of course, we have to acknowledge that there have been also success stories. The success stories, or let's say intermediary success stories, a full success story for the moment is the Consumer Rights Directive. Now, it started quite in the wrong way, with a very bizarre consumer proposal, but here again the Parliament and certainly Malcolm's committee has done a huge job in trying to get it right, and now we have an acceptable, quite solid directive which provides consumer rights in a modern way. We have the data protection proposal of the Commission, which is also a very, very ambitious instrument that we welcome very much. ADR, ODR, also something which is going to help cross-border confidence. And I agree with Christian, the payment accounts package and the MIF regulation, the proposals by the Commission, are quite a very, they reflect a good approach to the real consumer, to the real problems that consumers face. And I think that with Eurocommerce we are quite aligned about what we expect from this proposal at the end of the day. I must say that I just don't understand, and I know that Penny has been in the banking sector, so I'm just in the back here, so I can. That why should banks have such a privileged position of opacity? Because they are the only sector that is not expected to inform consumers about prices. When you go into a supermarket, would you expect a supermarket to tell you only in this part of the supermarket I will display prices? On this other part, it's just guess, and you will see at the end of the shopping experience how much it's going to cost you. That's what's happening with banks. Do you know how much your bank costs you? I'm sure you don't. And in this, in the area of payments account packages and the interchange fees, there has been such an unfair lobby campaign by MasterCard, importing into Europe very aggressive American lobbying practices that is totally unacceptable. And we have written to them that this is something they have been really abusing consumer organizations and consumers in this area. So we don't like that at all, and we have told them very clearly. On future work, I really believe, like Claire mentioned, online discrimination, online territorial discrimination for consumers is a key issue. If you want really to have people believe that there is a single market in the digital area, please get rid of online discrimination. There is some sort of an explanation that with products, with physical products, it's more difficult to have them delivered cross-border. With online, this is not the case. And just to share with you my frustrating last experience, because I have quite some experience with territorial discrimination, being a traveler. Last week I gave an interview on BBC News. And I have this habit of always checking what they broadcast, because I'm sometimes being asked, why do you say this? And I want to see what they broadcast. So I went on the BBC website, and I just have been refused access because I'm not living in the UK. So I couldn't check my own interview, which is quite, could I have the copyright on that, by the way? But anyway, that's another thing. But so I think that the European Parliament, is it IMCO, or your Secretariat, Malcolm, just published a study on online discrimination, which shows that 74% of traders don't trade cross-border. That's quite a problem, I would say, if you really want to push the digital single market. I also think that I think Claire was referring to M-payments. I think there is a major, if you want to go into proliferation, which we would certainly support as consumers, because we know that consumers want to go online for shopping, you really have to improve security of e-payments, online payments, and of M-payments. This is something which is, for the moment, not guaranteed at all. And certainly when it comes to third-party providers, it's not necessarily banks who are going to provide payment services in the future, also third-party providers, and there could be really a problem of data protection and of security. And the last thing I would like to say, because it has, I think, not yet been really mentioned this evening, it's about competition policy. I think that if you really want to have a market, an online market that is worth consumer trust, you have to really implement a strong consumer policy also, but also a strong competition policy. And what we see for the moment is that in the Google case, the Commission has a quite much too respectful attitude towards a dominant player. Just let me tell you that when you look at the treaty, one of the yardsticks of competition policy and of exceptions to competition is that this exception should be in the interest of consumers. This is one of the statutes of the European Union, and consumers in the online market have a right to a fair online search engine, and it should not be abused by the dominant player, being in this case Google, to advertise its own services in a preferential way. This is deceiving consumers, this is misleading consumers, and is certainly also preventing competitors from a fair access to a major search engine. So what we would call on, I don't know whether there's anybody from DG Competition here, and Mr. Almunia is of course not here, but it's a pity, Malcolm, you should really have and I think that there is a sort of settlement fatigue with the Commission in the Google case. We would really call on the Commission that for the sake of consumer choice and consumer access to a fair and independent search on the internet, that the Commission sticks to the principles and doesn't give away to proposals by Google that are not in the consumer interest. That's all I wanted to say by now. Thank you very much.